So I'm here to do the best I can in service to God. And we come together every Sunday to share information that will help us connect even deeper to the one that exists within all of us. We're here to share ideas to improve the quality of our lives. And I draw upon psychology and philosophy and religion, mysticism, all the ideologies that there are to support us. And recently, I've been doing parts of a longer series called The Nature of Being, which has been drawing information from past authors and teachers of New Thought. Before we start with today's talk on soul, the creative medium, let me share a couple ideas to fit in with it. First of all, short one says, God reminds you, I'm not just in everyone, I am everyone. We can go home now. That's a very powerful statement, okay? Now, number two is the vision prayer. I intend to do the vision prayer, and I tend to align myself with this vision that says, all will be one. I have a vision where all people feel at peace. All people are fed and housed. Every child is loved and educated to develop their talents. I have a vision where the heart is more important than the head, and wisdom is revered over riches. In this world of mine, justice, equality, and fairness rule. Nature is honored, so the waters flow pure and clear, and the air is fresh and clean. Plants and trees are nurtured, and all animals respected and treated with kindness. Happiness and laughter prevail in this world, and humans walk hand in hand with angels. Thank you for the love and understanding, wisdom and courage and humility to do my part, and for each of you to do your part to spread this light. May all the world ascend as we are moving into that time right now. So be it, and so it is. I have spoken of the threefold nature of reality, or God, in the last few talks. The Trinity of Being, again we have this here, I'll put here. The Trinity of Being, which is spirit, soul, and body, otherwise known as conscious intelligence, subjective law, and form. The threefold reality has been taught by most of the great spiritual religious philosophers and religious that have been given to the world. And as I said at the beginning of the series, it is so great to have a connection with past authors, older authors, that takes New Thought back a long time ago, and to hear what they have to say about all this. We're using the word soul in the sense of a universal soul or a medium through which spirit operates. So our soul that's inside of us is created by God, and it's how God creates through us. It's the Holy Ghost, or the third person of the Christian Trinity. Like the creative soil on which seeds are planted and from which life comes, the soul of the universe is the creative medium into which the world of spirit falls and from which creation arises. We should not, however, think of soul and spirit separate from each other. They are really two parts or aspects of the same thing, each being self-existent and each being co-eternal with the other. The term subjective mind is used in speaking of the universal soul that we all belong and are a part of, rather than the term subconscious mind. To avoid that impression, the subjective means unconscious. No, the mind could never be unconscious. It is always awake and alive. The soul is subjective to the spirit that runs through it, and it receives impressions from spirit, which I talked about a few weeks ago. The subjective mind, or what we call soul, is not a knower in the sense that spirit is. It is not self-conscious. It only knows how to do. It is the doer or executor of the will of the spirit, and it has no choice of its own. We must, however, distinguish soul stuff from soul. Soul is subjective intelligence, the principle that's just beneath spirit. As I've said before, we call God principle, and all the laws that operate in the universe are principles. The soul, and it operates in us, although the soul may not have the conscious intelligence to choose. It's told, it comes through from conscious intelligence into law, and the laws manifest in form, and it just does. It is never in any sense unconscious. The soul of the universe is next in principle to spirit and is the servant of spirit. The term soul stuff refers to primordial substance from which all things are made. While the soul may not choose because it has no self-consciousness of its own, yet it has an intelligence which is infinite compared to the intelligence which we exhibit, which is finite. For instance, the combined intelligence of the race that we have in our life could not create the life of a planet, yet the intelligence of the soil of the earth will produce as many for us as we ask, when we plant the seed of that which we wish to have created. The same principle holds good, bless you, and bless you all. Not just one, we'll have it spread throughout the group, okay? The oneness of a sneeze. Oh, that's my next talk. Let's see. No. The same principle holds good in the greater creative medium of the spirit, which we call the soul of the universe. It has the intelligence and the power to produce, but has no choice of what it is to produce. Having no conscious mind of its own, it receives all the ideas that come to it from God and tends to create around them. If it could choose, it would probably reject, and this is impossible for as the soul to say, you must not plant spinach this year, you must plant cauliflower. It would never do that. We can imagine the consternation that would prevail throughout the world if once the soil failed to function its duties. So that's why it's there, according to the law of nature. We need not be disturbed by such a fear and look at this as not only the creative spirit working through the creative medium, but in our own lives. How does it work that we create by asking for what we want and holding the vision of that? And knowing the spirit will work through us, the soul. It is bound to accept and to act. It does not argue, but at once begins to create a likeness of the pattern given it. So we have the statement, ask and you shall receive. As soon as you ask, it says, it once begins to create a likeness of the pattern. And we have to stay open to it. If we say petunias, it says the same thing right back to us and begins the immediate process of producing them. Being neutral and a creative medium, which knows neither good nor bad, it is only conscious of its own ability to do what it's told to do through law. This is why some of the earlier philosophers referred to the universal soul or creative medium as a blind force, not knowing, only doing. This we know to be true of all nature of the law. We are not discussing the nature of the spirit, we are talking about law. So what about law? Law must be apparent by now, or it must be apparent by now that the creative medium or spirit in the great mental law of the universe, it is the law that obeys the will of the spirit. It is the universal law of mind. So we have not only our own mind, but we have the universal law of the oneness of mind. All law is mind in action. Our thoughts create our reality. Soul then is the medium through which this law and power operates. Being subjective, it cannot analyze, dissect, or deny. Just because of its nature, it must always accept what it is given. This karmic law, which means the law of cause and effect, works through the medium of the universal soul, which is the creative principle of nature and the law of spirit. Let us bear in mind that neither spirit nor the soul of the universe were ever created. Now, I don't know about you, but I know when I grew up as a Catholic and I was told that God was forever and it was a hard thing to take. But this is what it says, neither spirit nor the soul of the universe were created. They just became, they just were. Each is eternal. It has been, will be. Because this impartial, impersonal soul is the medium through which spirit works, and because it is a blind force, not knowing, only doing, it was called by the ancients Maya. You heard that word before? The illusion of Maya, which was the teachings of the illusion of the mind, the mirror of the mind. What is termed subjective mind, as the average person comprehends it, has no existence. In reality, there's no such thing as my subjective mind and your subjective mind. It's all one. If our subjective minds were isolated and things of themselves, we would be so completely separated, there would be no means by which we could communicate with each other. So that's why we have the connection to all this in oneness, and knowing that we can still communicate and connect with one another through the universal medium of soul. The next great bridge that psychology must cross is a recognition that what is called your subjective mind and my subjective mind is just merely the place where the creative medium itself reacts to our use of it. Within us, then, there is a creative field. There is a field of creativity within us. Whatever it is that we do, that we create, we call it subjective mind. And around us is a field of energy called universal subjectivity. One is universal and the other individual. We are a reality individual, but we have the connection to the universal. But in reality, they are one, because there is only one mental law in the universe. And wherever we use it in our lives, it becomes our law, because we have individualized it. So as I've said before, here is Source and God coming down into 7 billion souls and has the experience and the love and the law and all of that of God, the creation, but we use it in our own unique individual way. It is the business of the soul to reflect the images that Spirit casts into it. The soul is immaterial as we think of matter, but it is the substance of Spirit, and perhaps we could use the expression, the matter of Spirit. As all matter, physical form, whatever we have as matter, in this physical world is supposed to finally resolve into the ether from which it came. Just like when we leave our bodies. We came into our bodies, everything comes into soul and goes back. We may think of the substance of soul as we think of the ether of science, and realize that all form finally becomes soul stuff again. Perhaps the easiest way would be to think of it as the last and final analysis of matter. We know that matter comes from somewhere, and the teaching is that soul stuff is the source from which it comes. So behind or within or around, and that's why we say God within and as and around me is the oneness. The individual point is the universal subjectivity and universal soul, which has no limits. In this concept alone lies the possibility for all of us of an endless and eternal expansion of who we are. Everyone is universal on the subjective side of life, and only individual to the point of conscious perception. So we are universal, and we are individual in our own conscious perception. Therefore, we use the power of the universal mind every time we think. So know that it operates behind us all the time. And we're going to end for that for today and go part 2 next Sunday and do some more of this. Namaste.